Hi. This video is going to be a little bit slightly different, more focus. I'm just going to turn the camera here a bit so I can see you better. Um, we all meet lots of interesting people in our lives, and we're all a product of our background. And most of us were really influenced by our childhood, especially in the first 7 years of our life. And unfortunately, it's my belief now, being older, I have some advantages in that I've had a lot of life experience. And I've met a lot of people and done a lot of things and been a lot of places and studied a lot of things, psychology and NLP and hypnosis and all kinds of things, trying to understand people. And in some ways, trying to understand myself. Why am I the way I am? Why have I done the things that I do? And you're going to meet lots of people. And the biggest thing you can do is try to see them with compassion. And if you could see them as a 2-year old, and that if they're acting out or if they're angry or something like that, it's just really this wounded little kid. How we're parented makes the world a difference. And I think one of the biggest neglects in humanity is we don't get, not a lot of people are really good at parenting. They have kids thinking it's a great idea, but they have no skills. And for the most part, all we do is we pass along from one generation to another the dysfunctionality of our forefathers. And one thing is most of us we're all wounded to a degree. We're all emotionally wounded at some level. And the real degree is people, some are less and some are more. And some of those wounds run really deep and they're based on how we're treated as a child. A child is this beautiful little thing that's meant to be picked up and loved and cared for and have its needs met, especially the ages between 0 or even conception to age 7. And not a lot of people can put their own stuff aside to make the child really important and to love that child unconditionally. And as a result, that it manifests itself in further success or in lack of success when we get older. It manifests in relationship issues. It manifests in, just all over the place. Like I see somebody like Donald Trump, and to me, what I see is this wounded 4-year-old. And because to me, that's what he expounds to in most of the things that he says. He's not grounded. He's not, and that's what you see in a lot of people. If you start looking for, okay, what am I seeing here? Am I seeing a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old, or how emotionally stable is this person? You can generally see the people that are really stable. They generally have good relationships, good jobs, good careers, lots of family and stuff like that. And whereas the people that have had rough upbringings are more you're a lot of times less successful. No, not always. Look at some of the characters that have made it in the movie industry and stuff like that have been, Belushi and Jimi Hendrix and all these people that had success, but self-sabotage somewhere going forward. Over the last few years, I've been close to somebody that is defensive. And we all meet people, we're all defensive to a degree. And because what happens is we get emotionally charged by things that happen, and our brain goes, oh, this reminds me of when I was a child, and that means I'm a bad person or this. And so we respond based on our pre-programming. And very few people take responsibility for that response that happens. And I'd never experienced somebody that was really defensive before. And I met this beautiful woman, and I love dearly. And she was really defensive to the point where it was really hard for us to have a conversation about something, because she just would take it and she'd internalize it. And what I learned over time was that how she was treated, neglected as a child, had a really serious effect on her. And that made me in some ways love her more, because I could see this wounded little kid that should have had somebody just holding her and loving her, but her parents were fighting. Her grandmother was involved, and as a kid, if there's chaos around you, what happens is you just don't feel safe. And you got to remember how our brain developed. We have different parts of our brain, and we have the logical part, and we have the reptilian part, which has helped us survive over thousands of years. And what happens is, if you don't have safety as a child, if you don't have someone that's openly loving you, and as soon as you're born, you realize, hey, this world's not safe. Your brain develops differently than other people, and you're that reptile. The reptile's in control, and you're looking, hey, it's the environment. The environment's not safe, so I better strike out. Oh, that was an attack at me. I better strike out. And so that's what happens with somebody who's really defensive. And it's hard if all of a sudden they attack you, which happens unfortunately a lot, not to take it personally. And just to love them unconditionally and say, listen, I see, you're so beautiful, while they're lashing out. And if you don't understand what's going on internally for them, that they're in that moment not feeling safe. And so unless you can help them to feel safe, they're going to lash out at you, and you're going to be on the receiving end. And my friend's a beautiful, beautiful woman, and I love her dearly. And I know that, unfortunately, with a lot of things that happen to us, we are unconscious of what has actually occurred. And so if you grow up in chaos and you're just trying to make sense of a chaotic world, and your brain develops in a certain way so that, hey, listen, this is not a safe world. Because that's really the decisions for most people that are defensive have made. They've gone, hey, the world I've grown up into is not safe, and so I better be cautious. And so you can say something. There's a really good article I read about how to deal with defensive people. There's a guy, a friend that was an author, and she asked him to review this book, and he did it reluctantly. And much to his surprise, or much to his joy, the book was really good. And he gave her this really great comment. This would be really great, and you can make it even better if you put a little bit of yourself into this to make it, because it's really good. And for most people, that would be, wow, thanks so much for saying that, and what do you think else I can do? And what happened was his friend didn't talk to him for 30 days and accused him of being so condescending, when in fact he thought he'd given this person this amazingly positive and great, really great response. And it's hard when you have somebody that's defensive. It's hard not to also react to it, to all of a sudden you say something out of love. And this has happened for me many times, where I've tried to say something loving and helpful, and like the guy who had helped his friend who was an author, I was on the receiving end. You're not a nice person, and you're trying to put me down, and all this other stuff. And it's hard not to react to that, because our own reptilian brain comes to the surface, and we want to respond to it. And you can't. You've got to do what you can to make them feel safe and love them, and help them to become aware of what their pattern is. And you just got to understand that people are really defensive. It comes from shame, being shamed a lot as a child, and not believing that the world is a safe place. And if you lash out at them, then all you're doing is making their inner part right. And I know this isn't always easy, because a lot of times and this happened to me, I didn't understand. This was the problem. I'd never gone out with anybody who was defensive before. And so I just simply didn't understand what was going on. And I just thought that, there was a problem or something like that. And it took a couple of years, 2-3 years, before I started going, why can't this person finish a conversation without getting defensive? So I had to start digging down and reading. And I started reading lots of articles and educating myself as to what was going on inside of their brain. Like, why were they upset? And not take it personally. Because if somebody's lashing out at you, it's pretty easy to go jerk, etc., etc. And you have to understand that they're not doing it by choice. They're doing it because the world they grew into as a child was not safe. Their brain decided the world is not safe, whereas most kids grow up and they're getting howled and they're hugged and cared for. And this, with somebody who's really defensive, that's not the case. To them, the world is not a safe place. They may give you lots of airs and come across like, yeah, the world is a safe place, but to them, it's not. So I try to do, and it's hard sometimes, it's just to love this person unconditionally and try to be there. And also to try to, here's the double bind I found. I understand what's going on more than they do because I've done the research and I want to share it, but they take it as an attack. So it's almost like it's self-defeating for them. By attacking, they can't get out of this loop. But if you understood that, hey, I'm responding because my life wasn't safe when I was a child, and so this is what I have to do. This is what I had to do as a 2-year-old. And so if anybody makes a comment to me, it's just because it's not safe and they're attacking me. And so it makes it almost impossible for them to hear stuff unless it's done in a very subtle way. And that even adds more to the frustration of trying to spend time with somebody who's defensive. You want to love them. You want to say, hey, listen, here's what's going on for you. Your brain's reacting like a lizard. And if you calm yourself by having compassion for your shame, you'll be able to let this go. And you'll have a much more high quality of life. But for me, what I found, one of the hardest frustrations was I couldn't even do that. Because whenever I tried to say something and said, oh, you're trying to fix me, or you're trying to attack me, and all of a sudden I'd find myself on the receiving end when all I was doing was coming from a place of love. And, to be able to say stuff like that, you're only going to say, like, if you say it from your heart, you're only going to say nice things, like compassionate things, because you want to help somebody, because you love them. And you just care about them, and all you want to do is help. And it's hard because they have it hard. It's hard for them to hear it. And yeah, it's hard for them to hear it. And especially from somebody close. Maybe they'd hear it from a stranger better than they'd hear it from somebody that's really close and really cares about them. I don't know. So next time you meet somebody who's defensive, just realize there's a wounded child inside. And try your best to love them. And I wish I knew all this years ago, because I would have handled our early relationship a lot better. And I just, it wasn't something I knew about. It's just like I've learned lots of things in my life, and this wasn't one of them up until that time. And so be compassionate to people who are defensive and try to see them as a wounded child that they are. Try to see that that's why I see when Donald Trump lashes out, it's just a wounded kid. It's the wounded child inside of him that's lashing out at people. Don't talk to me like that. No, you see him in his interviews and stuff. It's just because he's wounded. And you got to see people for the wounded child inside. You got to stop taking them as, oh, he was a business person and he was a famous musician and all this other stuff. You got to see them for the wounded child inside of them, because we're all wounded in some degree. And the only way this world is going to change, one, is we start raising children better, and we start making a global effort to raise children better, and stop doing stuff that abuses children, war zones, and all this other stuff. The most precious thing in the world we have is children. Children especially between ages 0 and 7. That is the most time that you have to really honor these little creatures. And then they'll grow up and change the world. But it's got to start with us. We've got to start doing something to honor the world, and by honoring children. And you see children, love them. If you see somebody that's defensive, love them especially, because they didn't get it as a child, and they need it now more than ever. Anyways, this is a little off topic from what I usually do, but I just, I've got a lot of life experience, and I think I want to do more on this channel is to share some of the things that I've learned, and that's one of them. So please have a wonderful day. Love yourself. Love anybody that's struggling especially, and know that they're, it's like we talk about drug addicts and stuff like that. They're just wounded children. And it's like alcoholics and stuff. They're trying to stuff the pains that from their childhood. And that's really what to me, a lot of the addictions are about. They're about stuffing pain from your childhood, and it's all about trying to protect our little child we all have carried inside of us. So love yourself right now, okay? And have a wonderful day, and hope to see you soon. Take care. Bye now.